David's with us. This latest heartbreaking twist must be devastating. The higher court ruled this. Why, David? What did they say?
Apparently a political party, a small political party whose leader is friends of the family that's holding my son, filed something to the Supreme Court on behalf of the family, I suppose, saying that the Hague Convention is unconstitutional to Brazilian law. And the Supreme Court judge stayed the return ruling for my son.
Now, does that mean that he goes it back to the lower court and they rehear it, or where does it go from here?
It means now an 11-judge panel in the Supreme Court will first analyze if the Hague Convention is within the Brazilian law or the Brazilian Constitution. So far, America has returned 7 children to Brazil under the same treaty, the Hague Convention Treaty on international child abduction. And now it's come time when finally, out of the 50 other U.S. cases with 70 children, finally my son would be the first under the treaty to be returned from Brazil, and they don't want to do it to this point. We've had judges in the federal court that made an extraordinary decision, public prosecutors, as well as court psychologists that evaluated my son, all saying he's being emotionally damaged, he needs to be reunited with me immediately. And then they have this other trick up their sleeve to go to the Supreme Court and get it stayed.
And he's with his stepfather. Now, your ex-wife, she died in childbirth, right?
Well, again, you might say ex-wife in Brazil because we were never divorced. In America, we were never separated. We were living together, and I drove her and my son to the airport for a vacation. And apparently they granted her a divorce in Brazil, and she married this man named Linza Silva 10 months before she passed away having his child. So they were essentially married in Brazil for 10 months. And another thing that they keep saying is that there was never an abduction because I drove them to the airport with blessings to go on a healthy, happy, safe 2-week vacation. And they say that because I allowed that, that's not an abduction. That's one of their arguments.
When you were a guest on this show back in March, we also heard from a spokesman for the family of your late wife, Bruna. Here's an excerpt from that. Why do you think that David should not have his son? Why shouldn't he have it's his son?
That's right. And I don't question the biological right. The fact of the matter is that in order to be a parent, you have to be more than just a DNA donor, Mr. King. Fatherhood is not about making home movies and taking pictures. It's about sacrifice. It's about providing support to your child. It's about being there even when you're not there. And Mr. Goldman, while Bruna was still alive, failed to do so. I'm not sure if you know that, but he hasn't paid one single dime of child support so far. And he has been making allegations all over the place about us not allowing him to visit his child that are completely untrue.
I don't remember what you said then, David, so what's your response to that?
Well, I think that you actually asked him a very good question. So you take someone's child to another country and then expect that the parent to basically pay and support you in the abduction of the child? That was a very good question you asked. So that would be one of my answers. And another answer would be June 16th, 2004, my son was abducted. I've been down to Brazil here 11 times. I've been down in court hearings. I've tried nonstop, tireless efforts, night and day, to try to be repatriated with my son. Never, ever stopping. And they want to make it seem like after she passed away, then I came out of the woodwork. I've been, since day one, trying to bring my son home.
What's in the best interest of little Sean?
It baffles me that no one would think that the most important thing for this child is to be with his biological father. That is where this child needs to be. Maybe not tomorrow, but it needs to be a transition because this child needs to know his father, especially if that father's not abusive or neglectful to that child.
So you would rule, if you had this ruling, you would give the child to David, he could take him back to the United States. Right. Would the child be permitted to see his stepfather?
Absolutely. Adults should act like adults in these situations. Let's wrap around this child as a family, as an extended family, love him and support him and let him know a lot of people love him, but he still has a biological father who he should know and be connected to.
David, do you know if Sean has had any counseling through any of this?
They say that he's in treatment with a psychologist for the family. There were 3 court-appointed psychologists that evaluated him over a length of time, and in the reports, he is a subject of violent parental alienation, and it is very, very sad. It was a 42-page report from these court psychologists giving evidence upon evidence in a highly professional, intelligent report, and it was also remarked by the federal public prosecutor that their resistance to allow Sean and I to have a relationship, and that was in the ruling by the federal court judge in part of the ruling of Sean's return.
When was the last time you saw your son?
I was able to see him this afternoon.
And what was that meeting like?
It was beautiful. He's my son. And for me to get the opportunity to look him in the eye, tell him I love him, and to hug him, and sit there at a table and build a model together, it's precious. It's precious. I went this morning to see him, and when we got there, they said he wasn't there, but we could see him this afternoon. I never know when I go to my visits when they're ordered by the Superior Court if he's going to be there or not. Hopefully he'll be there tomorrow.
Does he know what's going on?
I haven't discussed it with him, but apparently the other side has. And I don't know to what degree, but again, according to the reports from the psychologists and the judges and the prosecutors, that they are saying some pretty bad things and doing some serious emotional damage. And,
Doctor, the one
hurt parental alienation
the most
syndrome.
in all. The one hurt the most in all of this
is this child.
Sean.
Right, and we deal with this all the time in Los Angeles County, in any child welfare system. We want to keep a family safe and permanent and together, and reunification is a big, important process. It can be a transition. This dad may not have stepped up the way people might have thought he should have earlier on, or who knows what the circumstances are. But right now, this boy wants to be with his father wants to be with his son. There's no reason not to support it.
If he gets the boy and goes back, what counseling would you give David on dealing with this?
I would give David the advice to be proactive, get ready, go into some counseling now to understand the kinds of behaviors he should be expecting, how to support his child through all of this, and then integrate his child into that treatment when he arrives back here, as well as maybe having some treatment before they leave Brazil together.
It's not international, but have you had any similar cases here?
Oh, absolutely. We have them all the time.
A mother goes away, takes a child,
Absolutely.
Divorces or splits, goes with another guy, passes away.
Sure. Absolutely.
You've had that?
Yes, we've had that. We've had them where we've taken children from their family, put them in foster care, biological parents surface, we got to give them back. We want to reunify. We want visitation to be monitored and to be safe, and we want these kids to be permanent with their families.
David, do you think you're going to get them?
I hope until we're on a plane and the wheels are up, I can only just hope.
What does your lawyer say?
My lawyer will be, I believe, in Brasilia tomorrow to figure out exactly what's going on in the Supreme Court. My lawyer in America says this is an outrage. And again, Brazil's a civilized nation. There are millions and millions of civilized, good, honest, hardworking people here. they don't want to be known as the country that harbors child abduction. This man, who has no blood relation to my son, right now has more legal claim of custody than me. And I've stepped up from day one. Let's make that clear. From day one, to bring my son home and bring him back to a normal, happy, loving environment with his relatives, who he's got countless amount of relatives back home in the States.
Oh. This is tragic. David, we wish you nothing but the best. We'll stay on top of this. Doctor, you think, well, you can't know Brazil. Do you think you'll get him?
I hope he gets him. And David, please don't give up, that you owe this to your child and to yourself.